Hey, what is going on, Aces, Axes fans? Live Funk N Waffles, like always. It is October 25th, 2024, and I've got the two guitar players from Squeaky Feet sitting right next to me here. Your guys' first time playing in Syracuse, New York, correct?
It is. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the area.
Thanks for having us.
You guys are from Denver, Colorado, correct?
Sure are, yeah.
Awesome. One of my favorite metal bands is actually from there, and they're very intricate music also. Have you ever heard of Cephalic Carnage by chance?
I haven't.
They're very, very cool. They're a lot of weird time signatures and growly vocals and stuff like that. But
It's up our alley.
Yeah, awesome. So for all you Aces Axis fans out there, if you have not checked this band out, extremely talented. They have 2 albums out. I want to say one is, well, I guess I have a question for you about that. So you have a debut album, 2023, Cause for Alarm, and then on Spotify, there is another album called Nameless/Shapeless. 17 sequences, 2 hours, 20 minutes. Is that considered an album, or is that a collection of kind of just where you're at right now and you wanted to release it?
So that album is a bit of a stretch with that.
Right.
It's all recorded live from shows that we play like tonight's.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's all entirely improvised, and as a result, of course, obviously entirely instrumental as well. So, you know, it's halfway between a live album and a strange art project, if that makes sense.
I love the Grateful Dead. I mean, I'm a metal fan and stuff like that, but that's very Grateful Dead. I believe they have a couple albums where it's like they took a couple different live shows and kind of meshed them together and stuff like that.
Yeah, so this is kind of like taking that a step further in that we cut out the songs in general, and everything is just the jam from this or that track from this or that show. It's intended to be a series. We haven't quite gotten around to volume 2 yet, but we will. We just get kind of slowed down with stuff. But to answer your question, it's like, as far as what we direct new fans towards, it's going to be Cause for Alarm, which is obviously like a more fully fleshed out studio album with compositions and stuff.
Right.
Instead of just vibes.
Right. So I like to give my little, here's what I hear influence-wise and see if it's anything whatsoever that you guys are into.
Cool.
So my description was, if Dream Theater ate some mushrooms, moved out west, hung out with the Aristocrats, do you guys know who they are? Tool, a 70s prog rock band, and wrote some crazy jams with Tricky. Are any of those artists ones that you guys are influenced by whatsoever, or?
Yeah, I mean, I love Dream Theater. I'm pretty sure Collins likes the Aristocrats as well, like the Guthrie Gove and stuff.
Yeah, Guthrie Gove, amazing guitar player, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't have nearly the chops as John Petrucci, but I love listening to Dream Theater. It's like one of my favorite bands, and I know Jimmy, our bassist, is a big Dream Theater guy too.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have, obviously them being from the East Coast and everything, and you guys being from the West Coast, even though when I first looked at the band, everything was pointing towards jam band and everything, when I first put the album on, I was like, no, this is rocking and everything like that. It seemed way more thought out than a jam band, and everything like that, songwriting.
Yeah, the scene of music that we're in and that we kind of all collectively have just been a part of for the past 10 or 15 years has been the jam band scene.
Right.
But beyond like that, we all, love progressive music, not even just progressive rock, whether it's jazz or fusion and stuff like that, and I think we all try to draw from that.
So that was actually supposed to be my first question. You guys have not been together 10 plus years, yet you're writing crazy intricate stuff. Have you guys played in other bands together, or been in bands your whole life and you guys just came together and just...
Yeah, so you mentioned, that we were a West Coast band. We're sort of a hybrid because myself, cool. Greg, and Kevin, we all met in music school on the East Coast.
Oh, sweet.
Probably over 10 years ago. And we have played together in sort of various formats. We've lived together over the years, also on the East Coast.
I figured there had to be some kind of history because it was just too much syncopated stuff to be like, oh, we jammed for 2 years and this came out.
Right.
That's what it seemed like to me.
So as far as our influences in our writing go, we're all definitely super influenced by jam music. I mean, you watch our show and it's 4 or 5 songs, even if it's a headlining set. But, for me, at least personally, I think that The jam stuff influences kind of more how we play, how we approach a show, whereas the progressive stuff, and you know, we have all sorts of different influences, but particularly the progressive stuff influences more how we write compositions.
Awesome.
So we like to kind of have that amount of layering and kind of theatrics, and you know, we do our best with it.
Yeah, I love how you guys explore riffs. A lot of my favorite bands, I love the band Opeth, Swedish metal, and some of their best riffs, they repeat one time, it's like 8 seconds of a song, and you're like, no, I want to hear more of it. Where you guys are like, no, we have this dope riff, let's see how we can let it bloom and everything like that. So I, as a musician and everything, I really appreciate that from you
and
guys.
That's sort of the jam side, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Extend it until people get sick of it.
Well, I definitely didn't get sick of it, because I think a lot of it is your drummer helps a lot, because I think adding some of the EDM stuff and some of that is a different, that's where I had said Tricky. He's an old Massive Attack, kind of that trip hop, early drum and bass stuff, which is what I heard, and I thought that was a very cool take, and I hadn't heard a lot of other jam bands doing that, so I thought that was a unique play on it. So
cool.
Are you guys into electronic music, or is that more of a Kevin influence that he brought into it?
I would say Kevin likes a lot of electronic stuff, and it's you know, it's experimental. It goes over my head. I don't even know what any of it is.
Understandable.
And yeah, he brings that influence for sure.
Yeah, well, I like it because it brings something unique and everything like that, and it just kind of helps maybe break up some of the jams and everything like that. So it's good stuff. All right. So, couple songs from the album that I wanted to talk about. So the first song, Kicks Out. And like I had said, it sounded like if someone was just like, oh, this is a jam band, and someone was like, oh, it's like String Cheese Incident, you would just be like, holy crap, no, it is not. It just absolutely kicks them in the teeth and everything like that. And I like how it's a little short, to the point, and then you kind of get into the next song. When you and Chance to Know, you end about 5 minutes in, everything kind of sounds like it might be ending, and then it slowly kicks back in, and then you guys do that little riff, and it almost double times itself. Is that something that just came out of a jam, or something like that? Is that the person that writes it, they're like, I'd like this to happen? How does that happen with you guys as a band?
So Chance to Grow is one that I wrote. I remember that point, and I love that part of the album. It's very album-y, you know what I mean? It's one of those spots where you're like, you have a chance to like really do with it what you will.
It really stood out to me.
Thanks. So I remember writing that song, and you know, we do the progressive thing, which is like we're playing at one tempo, and then all of a sudden the song just like pivots into a completely different tempo. But I remember feeling like the chorus of that song was very anthemic, so I wanted it to come back. So I remember sitting for like probably days, like just trying to figure out like, how do I get from G minor to C sharp major, and from which is a really weird interval, and from you know, like something like, you know, I mean, it starts out really slow, like 60 BPM or less,
right,
to probably like 100 BPM or whatever the song is when it comes back in. And so I think I just wrote a melody and just decided I'm just going to speed this up, and then found a chord change at the end of that section that just so happens to feel good if it goes back to the original key of the song.
It goes very seamless. It's great.
Thanks.
Yeah, so but those are the parts where I think it's like, I hate to keep saying more than a jam band, but it shows where it's like, no, you guys are songwriters and everything like that. So I love those parts. The guitar tone, and I'm not sure which one of you, by chance, on the next song, a little bit further. It is very heavy during the verse, when you're singing Step in the Right Direction and everything like that. Do you by chance know, I know you were saying some of those tones you've not sure dialed in.
I think that was you, right? The heavy riff and the verse.
Yeah, that is a great, very Dream Theater-y and everything like that. Do you remember?
I'm trying to think. I recorded half the album on a Helix, line 6, and then half the album on my Quad Cortex.
Do you have a go-to like amp cab sim that you?
I think that was That was on the Quad Cortex, and I think it was a Marshall.
Cool.
I'm pretty sure for that album, even when I was using a Helix, I like the Marshalls. So I was using Marshalls and then Friedmans, which are basically
Marshalls as well,
Marshalls.
right?
Yeah. So those were like for the heavy stuff. That's
Yeah.
pretty much where I lived.
But
on that album.
I love that tone and everything
Yeah.
that you were getting through that. But it was super heavy, fusiony, but not a Trey from Fish kind of heavy jam tone. It was more like a rock tone that sat in the mix really
Yeah,
well.
I was trying
so.
to, and I'm sure it's the same with Colin, but we wanted it to be more like, I don't know, what you'd hear on like an Incubus album or like a Tool album,
Yeah.
something like that,
Yes.
as opposed to like the Trey thing.
Yes, and Tool's one of those bands that I think Kevin brings a lot of that with playing the double bass and everything like that. I was going to ask if that was one of his influences because they're one of the bands that I've listened to for 20 plus years, and some of the drum tones I was like, I hear that influence.
Yeah.
So when the solo kicks in, which one of you play the solo in that song after?
Further, that would be me.
That fantastic. It's very Gilmore-ish. It's memorable. It's not just you had a tangent and you went off on it. Did you actually write that solo?
Oh man, I think it was kind of like written in the studio while recording bad takes of it and being like, okay, well I like this and I like this. I'm gonna do that again, and then the next time, well I like this thing I did the next, in the next 8 measures. But Gilmore is just, definitely was like an inspiration for that. The G minor kind of like, Shine On You Crazy Diamond type of sound.
Oh, you achieved it. You achieved it.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely in the beginning of that solo, and then it kind of veers more into more kind of traditional shreddy.
Yeah,
type stuff.
but in the beginning of it, it almost sounds like it could have been on the wall and it wouldn't have been out of place or anything like that. So, and the last song on that album that I wanted to kind of highlight was Progress. I grew up playing Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Japanese role-playing games. And that sounded to me, especially the first 2.5 minutes, like you walked into a new town and there was like a party going on and everything like that. Are you influenced by video game music whatsoever?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
We do a couple video game covers. In fact, actually, probably a handful of video games.
Fantastic.
Five-
I've seen the
five-
Zelda one, I believe.
Yes,
I've
yeah.
seen, yes.
And interestingly, that song was written by our friend and former keyboard player Elliot,
Oh, okay.
who records on about half of the album. It's not like this track is Elliot, this track is Brian. It's more like, he does this, Brian does this type of
Right.
stuff. So I don't know too much about the writing process, especially of the intro. I know I did some arranging on that song with him, but he kind of took the reins on most of the composition of that song.
Cool.
And but more in generally, the answer to your question is definitely we're influenced by video game music.
Nice. I was big, like all the early Final Fantasy games and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I all that music. Hadn't played the games in 20 years, and you re-listen to the songs, and you're like, I remember that scene. So you guys have some of those memorable things, and it's actually I wanted to talk about that leads us into sequence 3 on the Nameless Shapeless. It almost there's a riff that goes from about 2:15 to 6:50 in the song. So I mean, it's a solid 4.5 minutes, almost of that riff. And that sounds like you're literally playing a boss in Final Fantasy. I wish I could hum it and everything like that, but it's...
I can probably get a decent idea of what you're referring to if I look at our Bandcamp, where it reminds me which jams they're from. I might be able to remember it.
But it's fantastic. It almost starts with like an EDM beat, and then it actually ends with the EDM beat after those 4 minutes and everything like that.
The Wanderer?
No, that's the Pantomime from Baltimore last year. Yeah, I remember loving that one.
But that's great. Like I was saying, it shows how...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 4.5 minutes of the same riff, but you guys go in, go out, and everything of it, and it doesn't get boring. It literally sounds like you're battling somebody and everything like that. So
yeah, that's sort of like one of the things that's always like the struggle and the battle with improvising is like how to get like something cohesive, but not cohesive that it doesn't feel like a jam anymore.
Right.
And it's all about, trying to weave in and out of things. Greg and I will always do this thing live where we'll lock in on the rhythm and, we're looking at each other and then we'll just shake our heads like, No. Which means like, you know, we'll come back to this, but for a second, let's leave it and then we'll return to it, stuff like that, to kind of keep things interesting.
Yeah, well, keep it up because I think the world needs more bands like you guys. So please keep it up. I noticed you use in-ear monitors. Is that essential for a band playing all the different venues and obviously playing as tight as you guys are? And is that become almost a member of the band?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think as a guitar player, I hate in-ear monitors.
Understandable.
But for what we do, I think it's basically mandatory.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how big or small the room we're playing.
Yeah.
Always in-ears.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, the selfish part of me hates in-ears because I don't like my guitar tone through them. But the overall, you know, mix and, you know, you can hear all the little meticulous parts of everything going on, you know.
Yeah, I noticed how you have the microphone behind you on stage. So does that just go just to everybody's in-ears so you can That's a great idea. So is that something that you saw another band do and you were like, oh, let's use that? Or is that something you guys just kind of thought of and were like, let's check
A lot of bands on the jam scene use it. We've seen a ton of bands. You know, obviously Umphreys is one that uses the talkback microphone. It's really fun to have the option to kind of set up cues in a jam, the same way that some people's in-ear mixes would have like a click and a voice that comes on and says, go to the chorus, 2, 3, 4, you know, like they'll program that into their actual mix. Whereas we can, with a talkback mic, we can do that. You know, if we were jamming in A and then we want to go to D, it's just, you know, and it's not necessarily better or worse than like the more traditional approach of like the bass player goes to D and when we get there, we get there.
Right.
You know, it has its things that it's like, oh, it's tighter, and then also like maybe not as organic. So, you know, it's a fun thing to incorporate and try not to over incorporate too.
It's also good for just queuing to the next song or something, or sometimes just being like, hey, do we want to play this song? It's on the set list, or do we want to just keep jamming or something?
Yeah, it's really
Instead
cool.
of yelling over something, we just, you know.
Yeah, no, I like it's very professional looking, so I enjoy it. So we'll get into some guitar rig questions, and then we'll get you guys ready for the show tonight. So, Colin, I must ask, headless route. What led you to the journey? Did you play one at one point and you were just like, that's it for me, or was it a slow process?
So the thing that most drew me to headless guitars is just weight.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, when you're playing 2 set shows and stuff, you know, a guitar can eventually wear on you, especially if you're like a tall, skinny person like me.
Yes.
And these are toys as far as the weight goes. Like they're very light.
Usually 5-6 pounds, I think.
This is 4.5. Very light. And I had one other headless guitar before this one, and I've really been enjoying this guy. It's obviously a wacky guitar, the Strandberg. You know, it's got the slanted frets. I don't know if you can see in the video, but the neck is a very, very interesting shape for a guitar neck. It's almost like a trapezoid.
Oh, very nice.
And then, you know, it doesn't have a headstock, obviously. The tuners are at the bridge. And then as a result of not having a headstock, you can take a lot more weight out of the body without making the guitar sink like this. And then also it's chambered. So I really like it. It's a really great sounding guitar. It's like Sir pickups. And it plays like lightning fast. Sometimes like I'll slip up because it's so slick and smooth. And there are shows where I prefer to grab my PRS, which is an amazing guitar too. But yeah, this is my main axe right now, and it's, you know.
And I can imagine practicing on tour, if you're in the van or something, you can actually practice with that bad boy and not have to worry about the headstocks.
And I fly with it without really having to think twice about it because there's always space for it.
Awesome. I have 4 or 5 Kiesels, so they have a lot of headless guitars and stuff like that. And I've lost about 70 pounds recently. So before, I'd pick one up and I'd be like, looks like a ukulele to me. So then maybe I've lost some weight, I can try them again. I used to play Ernie Ball, Music Man, and John Petrucci, they look normal on him, and I'd pick him up and I'd be like, what's wrong? And I'm like, oh, he's a foot shorter than me. So it really, you know, you realize how different guitars just look different on everybody like that. So do you feel weird going to the PRS then with the weight and the headstock?
Yeah, I think it can be a little kind of jarring sometimes, and going back the other way.
Yeah.
You know, different guitars just bring kind of different phrasing and stuff out of you. So, I do like to switch it up from time to time, but this is definitely what I've been playing for, I would say, 80 to 90% of the shows.
Fantastic.
Over the last year or two.
So you have a very big, extensive pedal board, a lot of Wampler stuff, a lot of Strymon stuff. So very, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any particular pedals where you're like, these are my... Do you leave your compressor on at all time, or certain pedals like that, or?
The only pedal that I leave on at all times is just an EP booster.
Cool.
Which I know, for guitar players.
And that's
watching,
right in the middle, I'd seen.
It's in the middle. I think it's the first thing in my effects loop, which I don't know if that's the right place for it, but that's where it goes.
Yeah.
And I just use that just to get a little bit more low end out of my amp.
Oh, cool.
It's a clean boost, but it definitely puts some low end on there. My compressor is actually mostly off these days. Not that it's not a great compressor, but we play noisy rooms.
Right.
And a compressor,
Does
loves
add
a
up.
good noisy room.
Yeah, the ceiling just goes right up, it seems, with the noise.
And whenever I do find a place where I can leave my compressor on, I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the feeling, I like to dial in almost like that Trey Anastasio type of like, where the attack is all weird and compressed and it feels
Fusion-y
really
kind
good
of,
and you can play, it sounds so amazing clean too. But for the most part, I actually leave it off.
Cool. I noticed you have, I want to say, 3 different delays. On the top section, do you have them set, one a long, one a short, and one you can kind of mess around with? Or
I have 2 delays and a reverb pedal.
I apologize.
So what I sort of do is I have my Carbon Copy Deluxe, which is just like delay. If I need delay on short notice, delay, it's on. It has a tempo, which is really good. I've always loved the sound of the Carbon Copy.
Yes.
And I'm glad that they have one now with a tap tempo because it's very handy.
Yeah.
And then the Empress Super Delay is sort of like, my little baby version of like Greg has the timeline, where I have like a bunch of different more kind of like ambient experimental delays in it, as well as like if I feel like a solo specifically needs like an even bigger delay tone, I'll search for one in there. So it's sort of like, regular guitar delay that you might have sitting in your rig at home, like if for just playing around, and then like the more extreme delays, there's reverse delays on there, and there's octave shifted delays and chirpy sounds and all the weird stuff.
Right.
And then I just have my reverb pedal at the end of it.
Awesome. For the Strymon Morbius, it looks like that has all the fun stuff, the phasers, the flangers, the chorus. Do you mess with a lot of the different ones, or do you use it for like 2 specific tones?
I probably somewhere in the middle of that. I probably should, it's been a while since I've dialed in sounds on that thing. It's a powerhouse of a pedal.
You have a lot to do on stage already with how much music you're doing. So.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, tremolo, phaser, chorus, rotary, volume swells, some kind of, bit crusher sounds, synth. It's, guitar synth is never quite there, but it has a synthy vibe to it sometimes. So all sorts of stuff like that, auto-wah. So I probably use about 20 different effects on it.
Wow,
out of
nice.
It has 200 spots.
Right.
So I don't use it as quite as much as I should.
Yeah. And then I see you have another boost at the I don't know if it's the beginning or the end, it's next to your Polytune. Is that something you use for solos as a...
Yeah, I do use that occasionally for solos. But more often than not, I have that pedal as a buffer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a DB Plus by Wampler, I think.
Yes, that's what it looked like.
And it is a clean boost, but I don't tend to use the clean boost feature too often on it. I just have it as a buffer, which, like you said, I have a giant hulking board with like 8 million, cheap patch cables. So the buffer is to like bring in more high end, I think. At least that's what they tell me.
Yeah, it's always one of those things where it's like if you have too many pedals that are one way versus the other, then you have to buffer them to get the low end and high back and all that fun stuff. So, and then you plug into a Mesa Boogie Fillmore 50. I have a Fillmore 25. I've used Boogie amps and everything like that. Have you used that amp for a long time, or is that something more recent?
I believe about, basically the whole time that Squeaky Feet's been touring.
Cool.
So 2 to maybe 3 years. It's a wonderful sounding amp.
Yeah.
And it has a good overdrive channel too, but currently I just use it as sort of like a clean platform.
Yep. Do you use both channels and have them both as clean, or do you just have
I should. I just use the one channel right now. I should either get a nice crunch dialed in on the other channel or get like a clean boost so that like I can have, instead of switching a clean boost pedal on for a solo, I can just switch channels to the solo channel, but it's still a clean channel and I use my overdrive at my feet. But yeah, right now I just use the one channel on it.
Yeah, but they're fantastic amps. I absolutely love mine.
Yeah,
so.
I love the Fillmore. Greg used to have a Fillmore 25 as well.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. So before I let you go, certain picks, certain strings you always use?
Yes, jazz threes, really
Nice.
slash whatever I can find when I lose all my picks, like every single show.
Yep.
And then
The jazz trees are tiny, so they're easy to lose.
and then Elixir Nano Webs 10s, and I think Greg and I both used the same picks and the same strings.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah.
So sponsorship wise, I'm
Please.
trying to start cutting these up so I can be like, this is what this band needs. So standard tuning, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, awesome. Do you have anything else, guitar wise, gear wise, that you're like on stage? It's like a secret weapon or anything that you're like, practice routine or something like that every night you try to keep to, or?
I can't really think of anything notable. The secret weapon in our jams for me is on my end is just the Mobius. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Which we already talked about, but it's just nice to have a pedal with just like all sorts of just everything from a nice usable phaser to just like the most bizarro stuff, and just being able to it's secretly it's great if I'm on stage and I'm like, well, I'm out of ideas, I'll
Right.
just let my pedal board play for me, that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much for
Yeah, you got
taking
it.
some time to let us know about all the gear. Greg, so you have this beautiful PRS right here, Fiore right here, and I don't know, Scarlet. I don't know the exact color. It looks a little more orange up here than it
What's
did
the
on
color on
stage.
this?
But
Yeah, it was red when everybody says it's orange now. I still see it as red because it was.
it matches the Foo Fighters logo actually very well on the sweatshirt.
It's faded a little bit. I forget the name of the color on it, but
How long have you had this?
since November of 20. When did we play with Spafford? 21, 22?
22.
Oh, nice.
Since
So a few
November of
years.
22. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And you were kind of saying this has slowly become your kind of go-to
Yeah,
gear and
definitely.
everything like that. Do you ride neck pickup, bridge pickup, or are you all over the place throughout the set?
I've kind of found myself lately just between bridge and then position 2.
Oh, cool.
Every once in a while, in jams or something, I don't really use the middle pickup by itself all too much. Sometimes I'll do neck and position 4 for like that spanky,
Yeah, the Fender
funk
tone
thing.
if you need it. Yeah.
But I found myself pretty much living between, I guess, position 1 and position 2.
That's awesome. So I enjoy how you guys have kind of gone, you're the digital route, you're the analog route, almost pedal board wise and everything like that. Is there a specific reason that you went quad cortex wise, or just kind of slowly evolved to that and that works for you?
Well, I have an amp that I run the quad cortex through, which is kind of like backwards.
Well,
you know?
I think it's kind of. Do you use it more for effects then, and not necessarily amp sims and stuff?
Well, I got sick of just in general gigging with, carrying around an amp and a pedal board and a guitar, and like I was playing with other bands, and like I'd get home at 4 a.m. and like I was just like, screw this. So
totally understandable.
I looked into like the ampless route. Right now I run the Quad Cortex just as like a pedal platform, so it has delays, or not. I don't even use delays on it. Reverbs, choruses, phaser, stuff like that, and then overdrive pedals. And you can capture stuff. So I captured one of my pedals, and put it on there, and then I just run that through. I think it's called the Express Plus.
Yeah, it's another boogie. Yeah, which
man,
I think
I don't
was
know
kind of
something.
And that was one of almost the original Fillmore amp, actually, where it was kind of one of Boogie's just clean, versatile amps and everything, not one of like the rectifier and everything like that. So, do you use that? Does that go into the effects loop of the amp, or does it go straight into the front?
Yeah. There's I went on some guitar forum and tried to like. There's some 4-cable
method. I used to have a Helix, and I did it for that.
I like FaceTimed my friend who knows what that is, and he like walked me through it, and I like took notes like this into this. I don't even know what it does.
It does sound really good if you ever do get the chance to set it up and everything. But then it is also with touring. It's like, well, now I have to have 2 more cables. And
that's what I do the 4-cable.
Oh, you
method.
do? Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just like. I guess it goes to the effects loop.
Yes,
Something or other.
Yeah, but it's great because you kind of get the actual tube amp tone along with the digital route and everything. So
Totally.
4-cable method is very nice. And then I see you have a Soul Press Ho-Tone pedal. Is that just a wah pedal after it?
Yeah, it is.
Yes,
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. Someone just gave that pedal.
Oh, very
a
cool.
Long time ago.
And then you have a Strymon Timeline. Is there a specific reason that you use that delay pedal versus all the ones in the Quad Cortex?
Yeah, I think it's like. I guess just like bank-wise, or like preset or whatever. I like using the overdrives, and especially because I'm using it as like a pedal platform. I like just having all of A, B, C, whatever the presets are for overdrives and modulation effects and stuff. And then because I have the timeline and it's so powerful, I might as well just utilize it. I do think it sounds a little better.
Strymon stuff is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's pretty much on the top of the game.
There's just you can get some cool, crazy delays and stuff on the Quad Cortex, but the timeline is just next level. And for like the jamming stuff and the improv stuff and like the textural stuff.
And it has tap tempo, I'm guessing, on there.
Yeah. It just the timeline gets to that territory a little easier than just the whatever factory delays are on the Quad Cortex.
Awesome. And picks and strings, you said exactly the same?
Yeah, Jazz 3s and nano webs.
That's fantastic. So do you have anything secret that you like to, on stage that you have do you have like a patch on your Quad Cortex where you're really not feeling it tonight and you're like, all right, it's time for this patch or anything like that?
Not really. Not that I can think of. I don't utilize it nearly as much as I should. And whenever I sit down to I'm going to really sit down with the Quad Cortex today, or even the timeline, and I just get sidetracked.
That's why I gave up on all the digital route because my ADH brain just keeps going. I was like, wait, I haven't played guitar in 30 minutes. That was the point of it.
Once every 2 years, I'll sit down and mess with some presets.
Right.
But that's about it, yeah.
So you guys have toured a little bit and everything like that. Give me what have you guys learned from playing with bigger bands and everything like that, whether it's on stage presence or guitar tone wise? Is there something you guys have learned with touring with some other people that you're like, oh, that was a fun, positive thing we took away?
I'm trying to think. I mean, just being prompt. And,
cool.
Just
that is a big thing. I mean, the famous Danzig fight where he got his ass beat backstage because he didn't want to go on stage and everything like that. So.
Yeah, just getting off and on stage, promptly is super important. Whether you're headlining or opening or whatever.
Right.
And it's cool to see bigger bands and see how they run.
Yeah, I was going to
run
say
their business.
efficiency and everything like that.
It gets pretty specific, and it's cool because as we tour with bands or even just open for other bands locally and see what they do, we start to see how our band kind of grows in that, and you're just adding little steps.
That's awesome.
To help things be more proficient.
Fantastic. So what is the rest of the year? Obviously we're almost the end of 2024 here. Where are you guys going from here? What's the future?
So to end out this year, we have a run coming up in the Midwest, short little run. You know, obviously we're out here on the East Coast right now.
Yep.
Most of November we're taking off, maybe to do some studio stuff. And then December will be Midwest and some mountain shows. And then early next year, we have a big show coming up at the Mission Ballroom in Denver.
Oh, sweet.
With Andy Frasco and the Main Squeeze, which we're super excited about. Really excited to play a really awesome room in Denver. And the other stuff that we have booked, I'm not sure we can discuss yet.
Cool.
And then, other than that, just keep hitting it and we get out to the East Coast fairly often, usually I would say twice a year. So we'll probably be back here again soon.
Fantastic. Best way for everybody to keep track of you? Instagram, Facebook, YouTube? What's the best way for everybody to keep track?
All of the above, honestly.
Awesome.
I mean, I would say if you're looking for one central hub of information, Instagram is the best for
Cool. That's
daily
what it seems to be
updates on what we're
most-
doing, where we are. But follow us everywhere forever, please. Thank you.
And I love to see on YouTube how you guys are putting out full shows, and I think there was one posted 2-3 days ago that was a full show and everything like that.
Yeah, we do our best to get multicam videos out as much as possible, or single cam if it's all we got.
Right. Well, we love to see it and everything like that. Thank you guys so much for taking some time out to sit down with me. And like I'd said earlier, if you have not checked out Squeaky Feet yet, please do. So that way you can see them when they come down in 6 months or a year from now. Thank you guys. Bye. Peace.
Thanks.
Awesome. Hopefully,
Cool. Thanks, man.
Hopefully
Yeah,
you guys
thanks for
enjoyed
having
the
us.
questions.
Yeah,
and
thank you, man. That was great.
That was fun.
so we are back here, Aces Axes fans, and we've got the rhythm section now with us from Squeaky Feet. We've got Jimmy Finnegan, who is bass and vocals, and Kevin D'Angelo down there on the drums. Welcome to Syracuse, guys. Is this your guys' first time in Central New York area?
No.
No? Awesome.
Yeah, we played a festival in Lafayette, which is a little south of here in
Yes.
July.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
very
we played
cool.
Viscoland down there. So we stayed in Syracuse.
Awesome. Well, welcome back then and everything like that. You guys are beyond talented. That was one thing I wanted to say first off and everything like that. I don't have to do these interviews. This is just kind of like a passion project and everything like that. So usually within... music is my thing. I've played guitar for 25 plus years, and like music is the one thing in life I feel like I somewhat understand. And usually within 15, 20 seconds of a band, I can be like, that's something to check out. And as soon as I heard you guys, I was like, ooh. So I'd read Jam Band, and I turned on the first album, Cause for Alarm, and I was like, oh, it sounds like Dream Theater ate some mushrooms, in all honesty. I didn't, because that first song was super hard, in my opinion, not what I was expecting when I heard, Jam Band and everything like that. So my musical ear heard was if Dream Theater ate mushrooms, moved out west, hung out with the Aristocrats, Tool, a 70s prog rock band, and Tricky, and wrote some jams. Are any of those bands you guys are influenced by whatsoever, or am I a little off?
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Tool.
Yeah, your drum tone especially, when I had heard some of the double bass work and everything like that, it's very big and deep sounding, which I think helps kind of keep you separate from just like a jam band tone and everything, so.
Cool, yeah, thanks. A lot of thought goes into the tonal spectrum to try to create different sounds as the vibe of our band changes, because we do kind of fluctuate from the spectrum of prog rock to, something down the middle, like maybe 70s psychedelic rock, to then more modern jam band sounding stuff.
Yeah.
And everywhere in between. So
Right.
I try to incorporate electronics and different like tuning tricks to just kind of be able to flex that kind of.
Yeah, I praised you on the other part of the interview because I think that's really something that kind of sets you guys apart from a lot of other, bands and everything like that. So I as a metal guy and everything like that, I really appreciate the huge sounding drums and everything like that. They also said you were the gentleman that kind of brings some of the EDM techno stuff with the drums and everything like that, but we were just talking techno music also. Is that something that you guys had when the band started, were like, let's incorporate that? Or was it something that just organically happened from jamming and love of music?
I feel like you brought it. Kevin kind of brought that into the picture when he joined the band. Like he just, he uses these pedals and everything that kind of add like a whole dimension of drumming that you don't hear that often.
No, not whatsoever. Maybe in some live hip hop, but at least not that I know of any other bands in this kind of musical genre. I can't think of any of them that bring that kind of sound and everything like that. So big ups to it.
I try to be like three people.
Yeah.
Like a DJ, a drummer, and a percussionist all lumped into like one guy.
Yeah, hell, you do a fantastic job of it and everything like that. So obviously, two guitar players, very, very syncopated. You've got a keyboard player listening to you. When you're coming up with bass lines, are you focused on what the guitar players are doing? Are you focused on Kevin on the drums? Where are you listening for where you fit in?
I feel like most often I'm listening to the kick drum, just trying to make sure that I'm staying in the pocket as best as I can. And because usually like it does come naturally usually, but sometimes you have to like think about it. And if I start thinking about it, then sometimes it even gets harder for whatever reason. It's like, just don't think about it too much, but then you have to sometimes. But anyways, I'll tune into the kick drum primarily, for that, but then I'll listen to the guitars if they're harmonizing or something. I'll try to think of a bass line that complements it. Maybe it kind of flows the same way or something like that. I just try to try to find something that complements it nicely.
Who are your bass tone? Are there any particular influences that you kind of have geared your tone towards per se? Or because I couldn't really pick up one where I was like, I couldn't pick up a tone or anything like that where I was like, oh, that's this kind of tone. So do you have certain bass players?
Yeah, definitely. I think my all-time favorite bass player is Jocko.
Awesome.
So yeah, but I'm not gonna try to emulate him all the time.
Right.
So I also love Marcus Miller, Jeff Berlin, Geddy Lee, big influence.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. And because you just played the 4-string, do you play 5s and 6s and everything like that, or?
Primarily 5-string.
Oh, cool.
I have some 4 strings as well, but I just kind of play the 5 strings now.
That's awesome. So one of my favorite bass tones is on a little bit further, the very beginning. It almost sounds like it's a slap pop lick, but it almost sounds like it's like a slap click almost and everything like that. Do you have a very particular slap bass technique that you use, or?
Well, not for that, because that on the record, that's actually just a synth.
Oh, is it? Okay,
Yeah.
maybe that's why I was like I couldn't picture how you were doing it. So
Yeah, that's I don't remember exactly what we used, but we used some kind of soft synth for that probably.
cool. Do you do a lot of slap pop live, or more finger stuff, or kind of just an array of whatever it needs?
Just whatever I'm feeling, dude. Like I'll usually finger style, but
Cool.
I'll slap or whatever if it feels like it. Would
Do you use
feel good
pick
in the
ever
section.
for any of the heavier parts? Pick ever or no?
I will, but I usually don't.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I know bass players, some people are very anti-pick and everything like that. So
I don't have an opinion about it. but
awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. So you guys have some very cinematic parts. I had asked the dual guitar players if they were into video game music. I was big into Japanese role-playing games growing up and everything like that. Are you guys influenced by video game music also?
Yeah, sure.
Cool, very cool. So we had talked about Sequence 3, and that was one of the songs where I said I noticed a lot of the EDM drum and bass start the song and kind of stop the song. Do you have particular artists that have, influenced you in that kind of sound and everything, either as a drummer or as an electronic artist, where you're kind of like, those are tones that you're going for?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I got really into Sound Tribe, Sector 9 when I was in high school.
Okay.
And I always viewed them as a nice combination of the hybrid band.
Right.
That certainly perked my ears up because it was jazzy, it was heavy, and the way it paired well with their performance and light show and everything was like super cool. And it was definitely something newer for me to decode as far as like music went, because I was used to just your standard rock setup at that time. I was
Right.
like 15, 16. I never really saw people take computers onto the stage but be a rock band at the same time.
Right.
So I was kind of mystified by that, and then I dug further on from them into Thievery Corporation, and obviously I saw the Disco Biscuits around the same time, and Bonobo, the
Okay.
Bonobo live band was a huge thumbprint on my kind of like producer side
Right.
that comes to the stage. And then there's obviously just like classic Aphex Twin and drum and bassy stuff down that rabbit hole that comes into my playing.
Yeah, I think the Aphex Twin Daddy video, it's one of those things where it's like, I think everybody has that, like, I remember the first time seeing that and just being like, what the fuck is going on right now? And I loved Atari Teenage Riot. They were one of those bands from that era where it was like 220 beats a minute and everything was just nonstop. And I wish I'd seen some of those bands in clubs back in the day, because I'm guessing it would have been, really intense, especially being in England or something like that when everybody seemed to be coming out of there. Gear-wise, are you playing just the one bass live, the Sadowski? Do you just bring the one bass?
I do now, yeah.
Awesome.
I picked that up earlier this year, and it's become my main bass.
Very cool. I believe it's called a Metro line. I was trying to do a little bit of research of it really quick, and the amber color is very cool.
Thanks.
You got a Line 6 HX Stomp. You've got a volume pedal. couple micro synth, 2 different octave pedals, I noticed. Do you have one set for going low and one set for going high, or do they do completely different?
They do completely different things.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I used to have 3.
Oh, sweet.
Where one would be to go high, and then another one to go lower, and then another one to have like a growl kind of boost. But I got rid of the OC5, so I just that was when I used to go higher. So now I use the OC2 for like a sine-y kind of like synth bass kind of sound.
Cool.
And that just like, I love the way it like pumps in the subs. It's like it makes it feel like a club.
Nice.
Like when I kick it on, it's pretty fun.
What do you use the HX Stomp for? Distortions, overdrives?
I use it, it's pretty new to me, so I'm still
cool.
kind of figuring things out, but I use it as like a multi-effects pedal mostly right now. Just kind of have it in bank mode, and I'm like, kicking through effects with it.
Nice. Do you use, because I got to say, not a lot of bass players use volume pedals. Do you actually do volume swells and everything with it, or is it just to kill sound on stage?
I use it for expression.
Cool.
So I have
very cool.
Yeah, I have it. I don't know, like routed to a few, like on a couple of effects on the stomp.
Oh, sweet.
Like a sweep or something like that. Like I have a ring mod that'll,
Oh, fantastic. You can
like,
actually use the ring modulator then.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I can play and I can control the expression.
As opposed to having one sound, and because ring modulators are very much, usually like, well, I got that one tone, but that's a great use of it, man. And then you're using an Aguilar head. I see so many of these come through, and it's great because, we did a System of a Down cover band that used one, a jazz band that used one. So they seem to be just one of those small little compact units. Do you kind of set it up for everything at 12 o'clock and just let the bass do the tone?
Anymore, I keep it pretty flat now that I have the Sadowski.
Yep.
I'll do a little bit of high mids boost, but otherwise, I try to control the EQ on the bass.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And it just was a Fender 210 cabinet, it looked like?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Using the in-ears, I was talking to the guitar players about them, and they're like, not necessarily their favorite thing as for tone-wise, but with how, syncopated the band is and how much you guys going on. The in-ears, have you gotten used to it at this point? Yep. Yep. Do you like it, or is it one of those, it works for the band, but if it was, your choice, you would just be cranking volume?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
For me, anyways. I think for Kevin, you probably have a different relationship with it.
Yeah. I had seen, I'm not a huge fan of the band Dave Matthews, but I saw that their bass player had come out with this thing. It's like a stage wedge, and the only thing going to it is the kick drum. So he can put his foot on it so he can feel the kick drum and everything like that. And I was like, oh, that's a really cool way for a bass player to still kind of have that like live feel while still using in-ear monitors and everything like that. And I was like, that's a really cool feature and everything.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, Kevin, it's funny because usually the drummer has the least amount of gear, and I think this conversation, you might have the most.
Man, that's been a recurring theme on this tour since we've been sharing the stage with other bands and friends of ours, and the other drummer is a friend of mine, and the other day he was helping me load off. He's like, man, I give you 2 more years before you pack it in with all this shit.
No, I say expand it, my friend.
That's kind of, it's like, it's like 32 years old. It's like, if I hadn't stripped it down yet, I'm only going to keep going. I'm a bit of a hoarder, and I like to bring myself to the stage in that capacity.
Beautiful kit. I love satin. Guitar players' guitars actually satin and everything too. All ash, but I couldn't tell what brand is it.
Canopus.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. I don't know anything about the drum company, so.
They're based out of Japan.
Oh, very cool.
And they do it all. Wide spectrum, and multiple types of woods. They do acrylic kits. They have like a super boutique high-end line of kits, and then they have some more consumer-based models, but generally I feel like you don't see a lot of them because they're primarily used in like the jazz realm.
Oh, very cool.
And their starting point is a bit boutique-y just to begin with. So if you're going to get one of those kits, you're not going to get it and beat it up on the road.
Even though
unless you become like fixated on it. But generally a jazz club would like have one as a house kit.
It's a beautiful drum kit. I have 20 plus electric guitars, and a couple of them are natural, and one's a Jason Becker, and it's just all swamp ash, and it's just natural color because I believe the kit's ash and
It's
everything,
ash,
and
yeah.
it's one of the most beautiful woods out there and everything. So great looking kit.
You know, I think that plays in, the ash thing plays into it. Most people start playing drums on a birch kit, and then they either go to like maple primarily is a well-known studio.
bright sounding,
big sound,
yeah.
deep studio tricks, whatever. For me, when I was buying that kit, I think I got it in 2014, so like a long time ago. When they told me it was made out of ash, I like looked into it a little bit and found out that primarily most guitars of the classic rock era were used.
Yeah,
Ash
is great.
was used.
Yep.
So it has that kind of like cutting presence, but the tonal resonance from ash, on drums is pretty precise. So you get like big full tone, but it also cuts through the mix aggressively with distorted guitars and stuff like that.
Right.
And it's not super like tubby sounding.
Right.
But it could be. It has like an octave and a half frequency range on those drums.
wow.
So
Wow.
you could crank them and have that bop kit, or you could kind of like get them nice and like low and flappy kind of if you want to try to get like your John Bonham on or something.
Right. You have lots and lots of different cymbals and everything like that. I like that you're not particular to one particular brand. Is it something you've just collected a bunch of different cymbals and just decided as many as I can have, or are they all used for particular reasons?
It kind of was just, I amassed them over a long time.
See, I love
and
it.
then,
I love
then
that.
I was like, how can I use this in the setup?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't always like this. I think I was never a 2 crash cymbal guy until I joined Squeaky Feet. Then I was like, I'm a basher now. I need to bash.
Right, right.
Actually, didn't stop playing double kick for a long time before I jumped in Squeaky Feet, and they're like, you got to use the double kick. I was like, do I have to? And they're like, yeah. I was like, okay, cool.
Awesome, yeah.
And then I like dusted off the gloves, and then
Yep.
now I use it all the time.
Yep.
But with the double kick came the need for the splash cymbal and the fast crash, and I was mainly like a ride guy. I've
Okay.
always been collecting rides. I loved ride cymbals and hi-hats. And the ride cymbal is really where like a drummer could transport
You can do
to like
so
that
much on a
special
ride.
place. Yeah, exactly. The tonal versatility of a good ride cymbal is incredible, and that's what really kind of like elevates your mind to that flow state, is when you get a good wash going on your ride, and then all of a sudden you're losing your mind out there. So
Yeah.
I collected a bunch of rides over time. The only 2 cymbals I've ever bought online were my current ride and hi-hats, which are these Zildjian K Karopes, which are
Okay.
like discontinued now. I think I got them during COVID. I was working at School of Rock, and they had some sort of Zildjian Connect.
Nice.
So I just was like, it's time for some new rides.
And
I
Zildjian K,
found-
it's hard to go wrong with that.
Yeah, and I never really had that. I never really liked cymbals other people were playing, or like seeing a drum set that had all the same cymbal would kind of bug me out.
Right.
It's like, huh.
Almost like the easy way out where it didn't individually suit them, where you're like, no, there's a reason why I like this ride, and stuff like that.
Yeah. I spent hours in drum vaults picking all the other cymbals,
I worked at a guitar center for almost 15 years between the two of them, and sitting in those cymbal vaults and everything, you'd get 10 of the same cymbal, and it's like an acoustic guitar where they all sound different. Where
They're all
maybe an electric guitar, Strats are very particular, it seems like, but if you get 10 Gibson Les Pauls, they kind of all sound the same, but you get 10 Martin D28s, and it's like they're all very different, and especially with cymbals and everything like that. So, especially cheap cymbals. Sometimes cheap cymbals, $30-$40 are actually decent,
Some of them, yeah.
but the 90% of them are terrible. So, you have some conch shells hanging out on the hi-hat. I think that's a very cool little thing. So you have a Roland sampler pad.
Yeah.
Looks like you have a Roland snare. Above that, it almost looked like it was a rototom that was non-roto, that you couldn't move it, that was mic'd up. What exactly is that?
That's a mini timbale.
Oh, very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool.
That was an impulse buy $40.
Yep.
I like walked into a drum store to get sticks one day, and I was like, ding! I was like, I want this.
Yep.
It's like, put it on the tab.
Yep.
And then it was another like reconfigure the fucking whole setup to fit. That thing's been like up here on the first tour. It was like mounted in the middle of my toms, and now I like nestle it in that little weird area.
I didn't notice it the first time. That's why I asked. And the second time I was like, oh, there's another drum there.
Yeah, that's like the Rush drum or the Prog tom.
Right. Yes.
And then the sample pad thing is a new development. For the whole length of this, Squeaky Feet thing, I've been using a side snare, a piccolo snare on the side. And I just got tired of bringing it to and from rehearsals.
Understandable.
And I bought that thing off Craigslist, and I was like, this makes my life so much easier.
Oh, they're fantastic.
Especially when I'm backlining someone else's kit. It's like, this guy's bringing 2 snares and a table and a drum.
Right.
Make it easier, faster, and it feels good. The mesh thing feels pretty good.
Yeah, I actually, it's one of my good friends, Greg LaPointe. He played drums for John Fogerty for a few tours, and he had actually sampled me saying America. So he used it everywhere, and he would sample it, and I was like, man, John Fogerty's heard my voice. I was like, that's awesome. But yeah, that Roland stuff is absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think it's the top of the line when you can come up with any kind of V-drum stuff and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's good.
And then you've got some pedal. You've got an Empress Phaser pedal. You've got a Space Echo over there.
Oh, yeah.
Do you keep them at one setting and it's just set it and forget it? Or are you actually over there kind of messing with it?
I mess. Yeah. Not all the time, though. I only mess with the delay settings. The Empress Phaser is pretty much always on the same setting, and somehow it just works over everything.
Right.
Any other setting I use for that, while it's being used on drums, it's just like too aggressive.
Yeah.
So it's a light touch on the phaser, but the cool part about that phaser is the preamp, like gain, gives the pedal rig a grittier sound.
Right. And that follows the 90s kind of, that we were
gives
talking.
You that like washed out resampled sound.
Yeah, it's not like a Daft Punk where it's like highly polished and everything. It's like, no, there's a little dirt on it.
It's a little dirty. Yeah, it's a little dirty. It's a cheap mixing board that it's all running through.
Yeah, I saw the Behringer. Dude, Behringer stuff works. There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. And then you use some radial DI boxes I saw, which is like the best of the best. So
yeah, so it's like the cleanest dirty signal I could configure.
Oh, it's a great way to put it, man. You want hi-fi. It's like I like black metal when it's recorded well, but still sounds like black metal. I don't want to listen to it when it sounds like somebody's audio cassette that's been redubbed 10 times. So, I think we have the same feeling there. I saw you guys use a Behringer X32 rack. Is that for all the in-ears and everything like that?
That's the mothership there. We use it for everything.
Awesome. And then are you doing recording every night of all the shows and everything?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Just that's great. Do you guys listen back to it, or particular songs every night? Do you try to listen back to, or?
Yeah, I think we listen. Sometimes I'll listen as soon as it's uploaded. Other times I'll wait until I get home or something. It depends on the mood I'm in.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of stand-up comedians, and it's always funny how there's some comedians who are like, oh, I go do a set, I listen to it, and some people are like, I record everything, but I never actually listened to it and everything like that. So it's always interesting to know, everybody's different. So I like to know that kind of stuff. They had said Instagram, best way to keep up with you guys and everything like that. So hopefully we'll see you guys around here in the next year or so like that. So with sitting down with us, we can get a lot of people in the venue. And thank you guys for sitting down with me. It was super cool talking gear with you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, definitely,
thanks,
guys.
man.
Thank you so much.
Right on.
Aces Axes fans, go on, check out Squeaky Feet if you're not here live tonight, and we will see you guys all next time. Have a good night. Peace.